Ready? Okay, let's go. 俺は強くない、良くない方向に言葉もそう本当もうよそうもうよそうそう思うほどもっとどんどん動揺だからまだ頭から離れないしがらみの中イライラしたりして神の手かなんか期待して見失う始まりは一体何だったのかだけど弱くない真っ暗に見えても信じひたすら進んでいく怖くない通過眼中ない行かない方が何十倍怖い辛いきついだし当たり前感じなくなったかなり前てかぶっちゃけ感じたことないかも涙も血も流れるかもでもいい好みを勝手にしてロッキに武器を手に取り叩きひたすら集中だできるはずできるはずできるはずだ感じる己の無力さと愚かさも痛いくらいに知るそこから始まり俺が俺も超えない超えない受け入れ生きるだってそれも俺の一部向き合って手に入れた強さは打ち出していく俺はそうだと言えるありのままの姿受け入れる常に上見上げてる天井はまだ高いその上にはペントハウスその上には空が宇宙があるのがわかるだからまず地に足をつけいく弱いけど弱くはない矛盾は背負い込んでまた走るどこまで強くなるとことん理想現実を見る乗りこなす自分なり遅くも速くもないスピード流れに乗ったいやまだまだまだまだまだまだまだ受け入れ生きるだってそれも俺の一部向き合って手に入れた強さはぶち出していく弱さ受け入れ生きるだってそれも俺の一部向き合って手に入れた強さなら惜しみなくぶち出していく
All right, let's welcome everybody to another episode of the Black Ronins of Japan, courtesy of YouTube. I am your host, Osamurai-san. The Shinobi Bro himself is here as well. First and foremost, we just want to give a shout out to our subscribers. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for tuning in. We truly appreciate the love and support. 日本の視聴者は YouTube のブラックロニンシリーズへようこそ。どうもありがとうございました。 Hope you all are doing well this evening or this morning, depending on where you're listening in around the world. Man, do we have a lot to talk about tonight. Man, we got so much going on this past week month. We've been so busy that well, we'll chop it up and kind of talk about what's been going on, in our lives and everything and things that we see in the YouTube streets. Pun intended. But yeah, there's definitely a lot that's going on. We just glad to be back and be able to share with you guys what's going on in Japan, what's going on around the world. And for those who are listening in on the audio version on Spotify or Anchor and any other audio platform, you'll definitely want to tune in as well. So before we get started, let me introduce the co-host again, and that's none other than Shinobi Bro, Kirigakure Jones. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
はい、ありがとうございます。皆様、ブラックローニンズへようこそ。久しぶりですね。We have a lot indeed to talk about. A lot has happened. Before we get started, just wanted to shout out everybody out there. Times are confusing. Times are turbulent. Me, myself, as a Orthodox Christian, it is our Lent season or our fasting season. And one of the things I've been doing is trying to limit my consumption of social media. But you already know that sometimes you try to check out, but you get pulled right back in to this thing. So just when I thought I'd get out. So, I would say, hey, a little fasting does the soul a lot of good. A lot of Japanese recipes, tofu and ramen and all kinds of delights. Of course, matcha is on standby. But yeah, that's what's going on. So let's get into this. Let's get this thing started. And actually, I think we have somebody in the chat.
Oh, indeed. Flash alert. We got the coon in the chat. So definitely I gotta play the intro.
One of the guardians of Hades himself, the Supreme King Coon.
Yeah, shout out to the coon. I was just thinking, Shinobi Bro, because these podcast stuff, we also put the audio version on Spotify and Anchor. And sometimes I wonder with the audience, like, man, they hear the effects, but it would make a lot of sense if they saw like the audio. Cause I'm pretty sure they'll be listening in and be like, man, like, what kind of laugh? They're cool and everything. So for the audience that listen in on Spotify, Anchor, and other audio platforms, if you want to see the visual version of what we're playing here on the YouTube podcast, just feel free to go on YouTube, type in Black Ronins Podcast or Sigma Jones Black Ronins, and it'll bring up my profile, Sigma Jones, which is the main host and channel of the Black Ronins Podcast. That way you'll be able to see the visual effects. But yeah. And there we go. So before we get started, Shinobi Bro, we do have some cash apps that we definitely need to acknowledge over the past month. And let me tell you, they definitely have been very supportive of the channel. So first off, want to give a shout out to SKC. He gave a cash app donation of $5. So arigatou gozaimasu.
Arigatou gozaimasu.
So you already know the drill. First off, Mr. Aku.
Samurai, why won't you die?
Poor Aku, he is very much vexed whenever those Cash App donations come in.
Indeed. And for SKC, because we like to do some special special things for the Cash App donations. So SKC, you already know we already have a YouTube short just for you. And we know this one comes in handy. So there you have it. So shout out to SKC for the donation once again.
Salute to him. And speaking of people getting vexed and people getting so perturbed when they see brothers out here doing their thing, one thing I wanted to talk about, there seems to be this huge trend involving, you guessed it, the passport bros. And there's been a lot of talk about this in these social media streets. There are certain detractors who, for whatever the reason, feel like that they should go after women from these different countries, be it, Thailand, the Philippines, Southeast Asia in general, East Asia by, association. And they've said some pretty nasty things about women from these countries. They're allegedly uneducated. They're allegedly, desperate and all these kind of things. And this has ignited a social media war that is international, going global. I guess there's, media reports and things like that talking about it. I find this to be interesting and sad at the same time. So what's your take on this?
Shinobi, bro, I'm definitely ahead of you. I definitely want to get into that topic real quick, but we do got two more acknowledgments for the Cash App, so definitely want to get those in real quickly here. The next one, shout out to the Clue channel. He sent in a $5 Cash App on last month, and so definitely want to give a shout out to him. Arigatou gozaimasu.
Arigatou gozaimasu.
So with that, of course, Mr. Aku.
Samurai, why won't you die?
And speaking of the ladies of the fruit variety, because Shinobi Bro, back in the days, you talk about a lot of the different fruits of the garden. Especially for you, Clue, we have a special clip for you. You've already seen it, but since we're talking about women, I think Master Ukwe has something in regards to those type of fruits. So hold that thought, Shinobi Bro. We are definitely going to get into that topic. So definitely got one more Cash App acknowledgement. And shout out to C. Martin. He sent in a Cash App donation of $80. That's so far, that is the biggest donation to the Black Ronins podcast to date. So definitely good, sir. Arigatou gozaimashita.
Arigatou gozaimashita.
Yeah, definitely have to say that. And of course, Mr. Aku.
Samurai, why won't you die?
And then, Mr. C. Martin, I think this particular clip is our appreciation for you. We're going to do this kabuki style. Man, so shout out to everybody that donated on the past month or so. We definitely appreciate the Cash App donations. Arigatou gozaimashita.
Arigatou gozaimashita. Plus, that kabuki style is definitely buck wild, so I'm with that.
Indeed. I may do a remix of that with like some, I don't know, maybe some Western instrumentals or whatnot, just to give it the whole kind of
Thrash.
kabuki, but fresh. Yeah. Man. Shout out to our main man, Free Zone Lou, aka
Salutes.
the Hand of God. Pulling up right here. Here we go.
Are you aware of the proper method that one should use to eliminate weeds? You see, weeds, when left unchecked, will rob the flower of its proper nutrients. So what do? If you uproot the weed, then you disturb the flower. Its roots and soil don't like to be interfered with.
So, what do?
You learn to plant flowers that utilize the weeds as a form of nourishment. Take a look. This flower is an example of a beautiful exterior masking its true intentions. Intentions that are really quite brutal.
Man, so shout out to Free Zone Lou. By the way, Shinobi Bro, let me say this. I have figured out why Free Zone Lou really is the hand of God. If you haven't been to his channel, and this is actually for those who are new to the channel or listening in on the audio platforms like Spotify, I highly recommend you go to Free Zone Lou's channel. He has a new series called Volumes of the Community. And let me tell you, they do not disappoint. He already has 2 volumes going on, and he's currently working on volume 3. And you want to know, as far as like why it's important to, take a different path that's not the hive mind and actually self-discipline and self-mastery of yourself. I'm telling you right now, go to Free Zone Lou's channel and look up the volumes of the community. You'll see why we talk what we talk about. But yeah.
The name alone just tells you, like, what you're in store for.
Oh yeah. Believe me, I will say this too. It is not for the faint of heart, but if you want to get an idea of why there's such thing as SYSBM and Passport Bros, just go look at that. But I'll leave it there at the moment. But Shinobi Bro, back to the topic you was talking about. As far as this whole, how should I put this? Far as this whole nuisance of trying to tell women of other cultures and in other varieties, they shouldn't be dealing with black men that travel and whatnot, and then go to the immediate gall to want to talk down about these other women that you have never met and most likely would never meet. But somehow, because you are on social media and you live your life through the lens of social media and TV, for some odd reason, they know everything about these people and especially women from other cultures.
The sad part is they're not making themselves look good. They're making themselves look pretty bad. And I mean, unfortunately, salute to the gentleman in the chat. We have some all-stars. We got Logic's Finest. We've got Jarrell28. I mean, the thing is that, this is the way of the community. There's no self-accountability. There's no self-examination. It's lash out, attack, denigrate, destroy. And, it's one of those things that, for the brothers, they don't have to take this. They can get a passport, they can get on a plane, they can leave, and they can go to a culture that they're familiar with, that they've learned about, speak the language. They've got, male friends on the ground waiting for them, and they can plug right in to the society, and no one's really going to say anything. And to be quite honest, I think there's a big gaping silence from two types of women from that particular region. And I'm thinking of Japanese and Korean ladies. I think that number one, I would say that English is probably not something that they're going to be listening to fairly often. Not saying that there are no English speaking peoples in those countries. It's just that typically they've got better things to do than to listen to the insane ramblings of the community. And then, in the case of Japanese ladies, they're not going to respond. Like, young Hinata, I play her some of these videos. I kind of let her know what's going on out here in these social media streets. And she just kind of shakes her head. And then she's back to, cooking or cleaning or, doing something useful, doing something productive. And, there is a video from a particular detractor who basically said that, if they have children with the brothers, then those children are going to be classified as Black automatically off top. And they're going to look super blackety black, so-called, and that these poor Asian women won't know what to do with their own children. I find that to be very insulting. And, this makes me think about an incident that happened not too long ago with my son. But before I kind of get into that, what say you? I mean, are these detractors just out of line?
Sir, not only are they out of line, but they really have no clue what they're talking about. First off, let me tell you this, okay? When you hear detractors talking about, oh, well, these dudes, they only go overseas and get women who are not educated. I can tell you right now, the average Japanese woman, 8 out of 10 already have a college degree, a bachelor's.
Yep.
If you want to get even more technical, probably another half. If all the Japanese women who already have a bachelor's degree, half of them also have their master's degree.
Mm.
And with that said, they got the same, so to speak, accolades educational wise, but yet and still, they're able to get a husband. See, what the detractors don't understand, and really it just shows you how uncultured these detractors are. See, in these other cultures, they have mothers, they have grandmothers, they have aunties, they also have female cousins and relatives who make sure to go out of their way and teach them that, hey, yes, education is great, but when it comes to starting a family or getting a man, it's not about your education. It's about your personality.
Facts.
There's a reason why.
Speaking facts.
There's a reason why, and Shinobi Bro brought this to my attention some years ago. There's a reason why, unofficially, Japan is known for pretty much being a hotbed for gentlemen who want to look for wives.
Mm-hmm. Quiet as kept. Young Hinata, who has 2 college degrees, by the way. She has 2 bachelor's degrees. One of them in English. She told me jokingly, but not jokingly, that the number one export from Japan is Japanese wives. Like from, there were maybe like 7 to 10 females in her clique at university, And, we were talking about this not too long ago. Pretty much all of them are now married to men, and most of them live outside of Japan, all
Yes,
over
sir.
America and all over Europe.
Yes, sir. I can vouch for that too. Most of the Japanese women that I know of that I went to school with, especially college, they are married off and they're getting ready to, as they say, have some little ones. So you can miss me with the whole these dudes are just going overseas to get uneducated women. Um, have you been to Japan?
I mean, the whole culture and many of the cultures in Asia are heavily influenced by Confucianism, and probably the number one, well, relationships are probably the number one focus of Confucianism, as far as I understand it. But number two, education.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And, one of these detractors made a video, like I mentioned, saying that, these women are going to have quote unquote blackety black children. But so regarding my son, so, kids get into issues, kids have beef. And, one of his little schoolmates, one of his enemies, went into this tirade saying, hey, you're a Chinese kid and you got to go back to China and all this other stuff.
Mm.
And, obviously my son was miffed because he's like, number one, that's racist. Stop saying stuff like that. Number two, I'm Japanese. And what's interesting to me, though, is that we often hear the pro-whack argument that any children that are produced are going to be seen by other people as quote unquote black. They're going to automatically classify them as that and put them in that category. But I can assure you that genetics from Asia are quite strong.
Mm-hmm.
So my own children, they have Japanese eyes. Those genes dominate. They both have, looser hair textures. Their hair grows very quickly. I think some of our detractors might be a bit jealous of that, but anyway.
Oh, fine. I will play the burn bear, but please continue. Please continue.
Nah, go ahead and do it. Go ahead. We got, we gotta let that happen. So, and like, while my son, he looks like me, and he definitely looks like his grandmother, my mother. So there's no mistaking that, he's my son. My mother, God rest her soul, she had that Meghan Markle look. She was very fair complected, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, people, when they look at him, they put him into that quote unquote Asian category. They don't really make an assumption that he is quote unquote black in that sense.
Mhm.
So for a detractor to make a video saying that any children that these women have with passport bros or others are automatically going to experience the same issues and challenges that a mono-ethnic African person, Caribbean person, ADO slash FBA freedman person, that is a lie. That is demonstrably false. It's a racist thing to argue. It's
Mhm.
a thing to say. And, from my own personal experience, that's certainly not the case, because in a lot of instances, people have no idea, what my kids are. They, are you Italian? Are you Chinese? Are you Japanese? What are you? They have a hard time really figuring that out. So I just feel like that the rhetoric that we're seeing being directed against, ladies from Asia is scaremongering and fear-based tactics. What say you?
Shinobi, bro, you bring up the topic of the Asian gene being strong. I'm gonna use myself as an example. So, what was that? Maybe 2 years ago, I did a DNA test through 23andMe, And I found out that somewhere along my genetic lines, I have at least 3% Chinese genetics. Now, Shinobi Bro has seen me in person before. So he knows as far as like my phenotype, how it looks and everything. Now keep in mind, I I guess if you want to say by lineage, I'm supposed to be, you know, um black American, if you want to put it that. Father is black, mother is black. Both of my grandparents are black, even though my maternal grandmother is actually more she's kind of like a quarter Native American, but in either case, um she's still considered black. So the Negro gene should be very obvious far as like my genetics. But Shinobi bro, I can't tell you how many Japanese people have mistaken me for being a double, a double, or the official term, a hafu. And even when I went to Hawaii, I have had local Hawaiians mistaking me for being a fellow Hawaiian. And it's just like, wow, I can easily pass for at least a Southeast Asian if I didn't tell anybody as far as like my background and everything or where I'm from. So that lends to that lends credit to what you said about the Asian genes being strong. And definitely I can tell you if your kids are mostly being classified as Asian and they do not they don't most people don't know who their father is until you show up. I can only imagine somewhere along the lines, down the line, when me and Miss Kagome, we get together, start our family and whatnot. My kids, my kids are probably going to be very Asian passing. And then when they look at their father, or they go look at the father, they're gonna be like, "Are you sure your father has black in him?" But that's just my observation. But
Well, like, I'm sorry, go ahead. Well, someone's on.
no, go right ahead. I was finding a question that was asked in the chat, but go right ahead.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, because Azur's asking, how have I been, just out here, doing our thing over here in the Black Lonins SYSBM sector, chopping up, providing quality content for the peoples. But, and as you mentioned, Osama and I saw, we've seen each other in real life. And yeah, you definitely have that phenotype. And that brings up a very interesting point because when the brothers have children with women from other groups, I mean it doesn't really matter if you're on the lighter side of the game or if you're on the darker side of the game. It doesn't matter. The Black American male has DNA from different groups already, European, Native American, others. So I mean, when they start producing children, there's really no telling what that child is going to look like in terms of skin tone, in terms of facial structure. I mean, it'll resemble the father, of course, but you can't say that they're always going to get lumped into this specific category because genetics don't work like that. So I mean, I just found that to be I just felt that video that the detractor made, even making that argument, was a very disrespectful argument because the lived experience of many of the brothers. And I wager that we're going to see intergenerational SYSBM, and we're going to see intergenerational passport bros. I tell you what, when my son is 18 years of age, I've already told him, I said, don't even worry about it. You know what I'm saying? We going to have the family hook him up. We going to get on that plane. We're going to go to the J. he's going to be all right.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, you could see in the very near future, and this is kind of what we're going to talk about a little bit, in here in a few minutes, but I mean, you're going to have these upwardly mobile guys who are basically going to have the whole world to choose from, and they're not going to let their children be destroyed, trying to do something out here in the Matrix. No, you're going to see, like the Old Testament. They're going to be like, I will find a wife for my son from, her mother's tribe or something. Mark my words, man, this is going to be a thing.
Actually, in Japan, there is a practice when it come to spouse hunting. It's called konkatsu.
Huh.
Yep.
Interesting.
So
that I didn't know. So
yeah,
we got to put that on the docket.
Yeah, and believe me, I'm on the next Black Ronins Intel, we're going to be getting into the whole concept of omiai and konkatsu.
Ooh, so cool.
So, especially when it comes to the brothers who want to find something in Japan for, family life and, romance and everything. We definitely got an intel for that. But before we continue, Shinobi bro, the hand of God himself, Freezon Lu, asked this question. And now after I read the comment, I'm going to lay in why he asked this particular question. So Freezon Lu says, Sigma, do they view dating black men as dysgenics in Japan? Now, the reason why he asked this question, Shinobi bro, there was maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, there was a stream by one of these pro-blackity black, types on YouTube. And this particular individual tried desperately, and I do mean desperately, tried to make the argument that when black men get with a non-black woman, that is dysgenics. Meanwhile, while the black woman gets with any non-black man, that is eugenics. And first off, this lets me know this individual has never traveled outside their neighborhood, let alone outside of America. But then that got me thinking, Shinobi bro. That's like, Now, we're not going to go into a deeper topic about this, but I will share something that I have experienced with some of my male Japanese friends. So this is back when I was still in college, getting my bachelor's and everything. And I was at a house party with a lot of my Japanese friends. And I asked the male compadres there, like, hey, just a question to ask you. In Japanese culture, what do Japanese parents prefer? Do they prefer a black son-in-law or a black daughter-in-law? And I tell you not, Shinobi bro, almost unanimous. They have told me that most Japanese parents would prefer a black son-in-law.
Wow.
Now, but hey, check this out.
All right.
So I asked, okay, why is that? Because I didn't just want that answer. I need to know why. Why would most Japanese parents prefer a black son-in-law? Well, peek this. They said that when it comes to their children marrying a gaijin, gaijin means foreigner in Japanese, they mostly prefer a son-in-law who is willing to embrace Japanese culture.
Uh-oh.
So, good sir, Freezon Lu, there's your answer.
I mean, I have to co-sign that. I have to co-sign that because, quite frankly, when you find a brother that is interested in the culture. He's devoted to it. He's down for the cause. He is a very useful ally to that family. And that's been my experience, because I've tried to, hey, I'm not Japanese. I can't really speak on this. And they're like, no, you will give your opinion. So I had no choice in the matter. And that was really interesting. And then I think we could probably move on unless you got more to add to it. But I mean, so my daughter goes to a Japanese language school. And what's interesting to me is that, I asked her not too long ago, I said, hey, how are you doing? How are you, you're making friends, all that good stuff. She's got a ton of friends. And I guess there's these little Japanese boys that she plays with. And, they seek her out, you know what I'm saying, to hang out with and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think sometimes there's a perception that, Daboru boys have it easier than Daboru girls, which, kind of depends on the circumstances. But I'll just say this: my daughter is not lacking for friendship, be it male or female. So, I mean, she's fitting in just fine. No one's giving her any static. In fact, she's more of someone that is highly sought after to hang out with. So this whole idea that your children are automatically going to be excluded or made fun of or whatever, I mean, that stuff happens, and I'm not minimizing that.
Right.
I get that. But it's not always a thing. It's not a guaranteed thing. In a lot of instances, with the proper coaching, letting them know they should stand up for themselves and they shouldn't tolerate bullying behavior and to shut it down when that stuff arises, they get along just fine.
Indeed. And a good sir, Logic Finest. First off, I need to play his intro because we forgot to do that.
I'm so disappointed, Ichigo. So very disappointed. Sadly, your sword exhibits only fear. When you counter, it's because you fear being killed. When you attack, you fear killing. And when you try to protect someone, you fear you could let them die. The only thing that your sword speaks of is senseless fright. And that's not good. What you do not need in battle is fear. Nothing will come of it. If you counter, you don't let them cut you. If you protect someone, you don't let them die. When you attack, you kill.
Yeah, shout out to Logic Fighters.
Shout out to Logic.
He asked this question, and what I'm going to do is this, because we do need to move to the next segment and whatnot. But I will say this, SKC, if you see Logic's question here, if you can, if you could bring it up on your next stream, and especially if you have one with a panel, I will come up there and answer that myself. I do have my opinions in regards of whether to keep it or not. Most of us here will probably say no, it should not be kept. That's just us. But to go into more details, definitely have to say that for another stream. But definitely want to highlight that. And let's see. Clue, I will be hitting you up later on after the stream, good sir. I got you covered. So we're definitely going to do that. So with that said, oh, and by the way, the Azure, I'm going to be messaging you too. He became our new Patreon member on Patreon, and he joined the Emperor class, so he's also entitled to a new intro as well. So the Azure, I will be getting with you, sir. Be on the lookout from an email from Sigma Jones or from Patreon. We will get you going, good sir. So rest assured.
Appreciate you, all you gentlemen, for signing up, contributing. all that good stuff. So very much appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Indeed. Indeed. All right. So, good sir. We already know what's the next segment here.
はい。手盖人来自在谁
All right. All right. So, Shinobi Bro, take it away, good sir.
Neen. All right. So we've been talking a lot about trends, patterns, things that are happening in the world. And today's intel report is not going to be much different. I want to spend some time on the issue of demographics and birth rate. So, passing on one's genetics, or like in the case of our dear brother Aizen sama, passing on your legacy through your spiritual children or your disciples. It can be genetic, it could be a, master disciple type of relationship. But either way, you have to pass on your legacy. My late shinobi instructor, may he rest in peace, he was a giant of a man, a warrior, a man who killed many. He lived it, right? He lived that life. And he told me on many occasions, he said, Shinobi bro, if you stop moving, you die. That's what he told me many a time. So when we talk about nations, cultures, civilizations, it's the same thing. You have to pass on those genetics. You have to pass on that culture. You have to pass on the legacy to the next generation or it dies. And we've been talking a lot about interest rates and carry trades and black politics. These are very high level concepts. But I think a lot of this has to do with this whole concept. If you're not moving forward, you're dying. So Japan PM Kishida, he's been all over the news for a variety of reasons. But as it says, it's now or never to stop shrinking population. So there is a concept called Gaiatsu, I believe it is, which basically translates to outside pressure. Japanese culture traditionally tends to have an inertia to it. People tend to do the same thing the same way in a very time-honored tradition. But when it's time to actually flip the script, Japanese culture has made dramatic shifts. Like probably one I'm thinking of that's the most prevalent is the Meiji Restoration. I think that was a great example of a country going from a quasi-feudal shogunate system to a more Western style republic in a very, very short period of time. And this was something that many cultures, in my opinion, would not be able to do. There were countries that were colonized by the Western powers. Japan was not one of them. I think Japan is one out of two countries in the world to have never been colonized. I think the other country was Ethiopia. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But in any event, I'm rambling here. So the Japanese prime minister is, concerned about the birth rate. And Elon Musk, for example, made some tweets that made some people angry, I guess, because he basically said that, hey, let's get it together. He's been very concerned about population for quite some time. There's been a lot of conversation about the whys. For example, Mainichi tells us that lack of romantic ability blamed by assemblymen for Japan's sliding marriage rate, birth rates. I want to read this for a little bit. It says the, the reason for Japanese people's increasing reluctance to get married is that their romantic ability is declining, a member of the Liberal Democratic Party faction in the Mie Prefectural Assembly stated here on February 24th. Mie Prefecture, by the way, is the home to the famous Iga Ninja family. And that is kind of my spiritual lineage through my shinobi school. Like they descend from Iga related schools. Everyone knows their great traditional arch enemy, which was Koka or Koga, but beyond the scope of this particular, beyond the scope of this intel segment. Now, I will say this. This is something that me and young Hinata have talked about for a long time, actually. Traditionally, until the rise of Tinder and social media, let's say back in the 80s and 90s, right? So you see a young lady, right? You want to holla at her. This was before the rise of the smartphone. So what you would have to do is that you'd have to go into a shop or something and say, "Hey, dog, can I borrow a notepad and a pencil?" Right? Because you didn't carry any of that stuff with you, so you had to go borrow pen and paper from somebody, and you had to holler at this girl and say, "Hey, can I have your phone number?" Her friends were there. You were hanging out at the mall. Maybe you had a high top fade. People were laughing at you. I mean, you had to go through a whole lot to get the digits. But what that required was that you had to go step to a female, spit some game. Maybe her friends are looking at you funny. Maybe she's wearing a bodysuit and some Daisy Dukes. Okay, I'm dating myself here. But the point is, that, you know, you had to basically nanpa. Nanpa is what they would call kind of cracking on a young lady on the street. And in Japan, of course, such behavior is not encouraged. In fact, you know, that can get you into a lot of trouble. Probably the most surefire method to, you know, kind of get into a romantic relationship in Japan is if you have a third party, like a go-between, to make the introductions. My Japanese roommate did that for me. That's how I met young Hinata. That's why I'm married today, because of that third party introduction. But in any event, so this individual is somewhat on target, because traditionally you had a situation where you had a third party go-between. You were not cracking on girls in the street. You were not trying to get them digits, although this is kind of, you know, outdated now. You know, everybody's going through, you know, DMs and stuff like that. But in any event, so I think there is a disconnect between kind of the Western dating courtship model compared to traditional Japanese culture. And I think that may have a part to play in it. But as we talked about in our Black Ronins Intel, A Warrior in the Garden, definitely highly recommended that you take a look at that. I am pounding the table, and I've been pounding the table literally and metaphorically for quite some time, that the true culprit to why we are seeing these declining birth rates is manipulation of the supply of money and credit. Basically, when you manipulate interest rates, when you cause or trigger inflation, when you devalue the purchasing power of people's money, you make it much harder for them to form stable relationships. We kind of talked about that in this particular stream. We're not going to go over all the mechanics here. So if you want to know our argument as to why, for example, if you look at this title, men without college degrees are dropping out of the workforce because they viewed their dead-end jobs as a threat to social status. a lot of this has to do with the manipulation of the supply of money and credit. That leads us to another important point to this particular situation. In America, did you know that most of the children that are born in America today are born to married two-parent, or we'll call it two-parent families, because some of them are probably cohabitating. But we'll say that most children in America today are born into two-parent households. Yes.
So Shinobi, bro, you're saying that majority of these children actually have a father in the home?
Yes. Shockingly. Unfortunately, however, there is one exception to this rule, and I'm fairly certain you know what group is the exception to this rule, but we talked about this in Black Ronins Intel, A Warrior in a Garden Part 2. So we're not going to go into a lot of that detail because we cover a lot of the detail in that particular stream, but the point I want to make is this. Married people or partnered people, but mostly married people, are the key to fertility. In our environment, with the manipulation of interest rates, with the manipulation of supply of money and credit, with inflationary pressures and currency devaluation, in this particular environment that we find ourselves in, you will find that married people generally, or maybe to a lesser degree, cohabitating people are the key to reproduction. In other words, no marriage, no children. That's what the data shows in the West. And I imagine, I wasn't able to find any data to really confirm this in the Japanese case, but I think that's also the case in Japan. And we were talking about this offline, actually. Most of the married Japanese people that we know, they have kids. Like, some of those families are pumping out the babies left and right. So, it's not a question, in my opinion, of something is wrong with Japanese people and they're just not having kids. No, it's deeper than that. There are structural forces. And I know that word has been kind of played out, but I think it really is true. And we kind of went over the evidence for that in our Black Ronins Intel, A Warrior in the Garden Part 1 and Part 2. So please see those videos for the full explanation. But I believe that the manipulation of interest rates does have a very significant effect. Now, I wanted to share a tweet. This particular tweet is by the author of a blog called Economica. I think that he deleted the blog. I think he primarily posts on Twitter now. But basically what he does is he looks at demographics and he also looks at Fed funds. In other words, the manipulation of interest rates, what does that do to population? So for example, the black line here that you're looking at is the Fed funds rate. So the Federal Reserve, when they raise interest rates or if they lower interest rates, what they're doing is they're controlling the Fed funds rate. If they want to push up the Fed funds rate, which is what they've been doing since basically 2021, then they will increase that, and that will cause that rate to rise. If they want to basically flood the system with money and credit, they will cut that particular Fed funds rate. So back in the 1980s, let's say, the Fed fund rate was in the neighborhood of about 17%. Now, when they started cutting that rate going into 1990, the white line shows U.S. population. So basically, there seems to be a lag. So as a rate was going up, the population was going up. But when the rate was being cut, then we basically see this population, the U.S. population, fall off a cliff, basically going from 3.4 million added in, say, the mid-90s, all the way down to, say, 1.5 million roughly in 2021. So basically, what he's trying to show graphically is that there is a relationship. Now, some people will come back and say, correlation does not equal causation. But I would disagree with that. I would say that, when you manipulate the supply of money and credit, there are real world ramifications. It makes it really difficult for, say, a working class brother that maybe isn't on the higher end of the scale to make the money that that person would need to support a family. When you devaluate somebody's currency, that currency does not have the purchasing power that it used to. It can't pay a mortgage. It can't pay the rent. It can't pay the food expenses. It can't pay all the things that a man would need to run a household. And so if you have men that feel like, in the case of Japan, there's contract workers, wages are not terribly high, although because Japan is experiencing significant inflation now, there actually have been some wage increases. But basically, to make a long story short, it is not that something is fundamentally wrong with Japanese people. It is not that something is fundamentally wrong with men. What we have here is the effect of policy choices. The Bank of Japan has kept the yen weak for I don't even know how long at this point. I'm assuming a decade, if not longer. The Federal Reserve has cut interest rates and kept them close to zero here in the West for over 10 years. These policies have consequences. And we kind of laid those out in those intel streams. But stay tuned, because what I'm thinking is that number one, no marriage equals no children. Number two, if you have resources, if you have education, if you have skills, if you can pay the cost to be the boss, then more than likely you are going to have that wife and you are going to have those children. And this is going to be an interesting outcome, because this is, for lack of a better word, this is survival of the fittest. This is social Darwinism on steroids. If the future generation is coming up from the children of the upper middle class and upper classes for the most part, if these are the groups that are producing most of the children, what is that going to do to our society? Only time will tell. That is the Intel Report with Kitty Jones, Shinobi Bro.
So, Shinobi Bo, you made mention the survival of the fittest. And personally, I think that's going to play a major role in this day and age, especially when, at the moment, don't take my word for it, I'm just going off of what I'm hearing through the grapevine, but the American economy is going to pretty much, if it's not in a recession now, is going to start to go into a recession pretty soon. And it really got me thinking. A lot of these guys, if they do not put themselves in prime position to be able to, at the very least, sustain themselves, it's going to be very difficult to try to, as they say, mate partnering. Because unfortunately, as we talked about from the recent Intel streams, shout out to Angry Snowman in the chat. Good to see you, sir. A lot of these guys are dropping out of the workforce because they are not doing well in the corporate world. What I mean by not doing well, they probably do not have the skill sets required, or even say the schooling required. Both of those are very important, but the schooling required to move up to those six-figure positions. And the reason I say that is because usually for most guys be able to have a family or start a family, they gotta at least be making, they say, middle class wages, which right now the average middle class wage is around 75,000. So let's do the math here. So the average middle class income is 75,000, but the average income overall in America is about 42,000 a year. Not many men are going to be able to find decent partners when that's the average wage here in America. So it's really going to become a priority for a lot of these guys that, hey, you need to put yourself in prime position to be able to not only way through this economic downturn, because we are going towards an economic downturn, but also prepare yourself for the future. Even for guys who are not interested in starting a family and all, there will be dire consequences if you are just trying to, as they say, get on by, or trying to do the bare necessities or the bare minimum. It's going to be pretty tough. But especially for those who aspire to have a family and have a wife and kids and whatnot, it's really going to be tough going forward. Because let me just put it like this. Um, those of you who are trying to break it in the sports world or in the music world and all, that's very few are going to cut it, even if you make it there. So it's really telling, Shinobi Bro, that in this coming of age, it's really gonna be a lot of men who, I hate to say this, but it is the truth. It's gonna be a lot of men who their genetics die with them, whether by choice or by not choice.
Yeah, and salute to Hood Servative, Angry Snowman, and Doc Phoenix. Salute,
Mm.
gentlemen. You know, like a friend of mine, we were talking, and we were kind of discussing. I saw a thumbnail by Big Truck Sports. I think he covers a lot of Password Bros content. So shout out to him. Sorry if I didn't get your name right. But he basically had a picture of like a looking pretty, she was looking pretty thick, a little thick Amish girl, right?
Mm.
And me and my buddy, after liturgy, we were talking about this, and we were talking about like what would happen if society just collapsed, like who would survive. And a lot of these Amish communities, they've got land, they've got a pretty cohesive culture, they've got farms and stuff like that. I mean, they make food, they make other things. So I mean, these communities are in a prime position. So if our like just in time manufacturing supply chain society were to implode, I mean, they would come out of it on the other side. And then if you really think about it, like, okay, we all tend to think of, people have different opinions of Amish people, right? But I
Hmm.
mean, if you really think about it, um, the girls don't have tattoos. The girls tend to be in pretty decent shape. The
Hmm.
girls know how to, they know how to be useful, right? I mean, and they instill their values into their children. So if you compare that to, what's going on TikTok and other forms of social media, again, you have to ask yourself who's in a better position to move forward. I mean, basically, we all know the old saying, demographics are destiny. And
Mm.
if you really think about it, who's having the children? It's the married for the most part. It's upper middle class, upper class, but you also have these other communities out there too, like the Amish and others that are very focused on, living off the land and stuff like that. So, I mean, in 2 generations' time, whose children are going to be here? Whose children are going to basically inherit the earth? I think this is very interesting to think about. And if we bring it back to Japan for a second, the government there is going to have to make some pretty hard choices. But those choices are going to have to, in my opinion, they're going to have to center around making it so that men and women are able to afford getting together and actually getting married. You got to change the economics. If you don't do that and you don't encourage those marriages, it's not going to be successful. Laughing Dog says Mennonite ladies are greater. Well, I'll take your word for it. I'm not really checking for, those ladies, because obviously I'm out of the game. But I just thought it just kind of hit me because we were talking about it today, and I said, you know what, my buddy was absolutely right. If you have the resources, you can make it. But anyway, just some random thoughts I had on that subject.
Indeed. Well, Shinobi Bro, let's take a break real quick and do something a little bit more fun. And you all know what that segment is. It's the top 3 videos of the month, courtesy of Instagram. Now, to kind of let everybody know, we did miss last month in regards of doing the Black Ronins podcast. So the top 3 videos we're going to be featuring on tonight's stream are for the month of February, not for the month of March. Later on, when we do another Black Ronins podcast later on this month, we'll then do the top 3 videos from Instagram for the month of March. So definitely just want to put that out there. But with that said, how this works is pretty much we just go on our Instagram page and we look for all things Japanese culture related or samurai related or just martial arts related. And we will post those videos, repost them on our Instagram page. And the videos that garner the top 3 votes for the month get featured on our monthly podcast. So definitely these videos have been voted the most for the month of February. And there are actually some pretty good ones that's going to be featured. So with that said, Shinobi Bro, should I drop the beat, good sir?
Kick it.
All right. Coming in at number 3 is the username by Hattori _ Hanzo _ the _ ninjas. They had a very good video that was posted on last month. And yeah, it is very, very good. So let me go ahead and share it right now. Here we go. Now, what do you think, Shinobi Bro? This is up your repertoire.
Bro, I need powers like those. I mean, hey, it looks wonderful. I'm just gonna nitpick a little bit and say, these are kicks I would not ordinarily use, but hey, it looks beautiful.
Indeed. Shout out to Hattori _ Hanzo _ the _ ninjas. Your video came in at number 3 for the month of February. Arigatou gozaimashita.
Arigatou gozaimashita.
All right. Coming in at number 2 is a video from the user Hiro Shihatara. This is actually a pretty good samurai video. So I'm going to go ahead and share it. And let's have a look. look how quickly he was able to dislodge that leaf.
Wow.
Yeah, not bad. Great form and everything.
Yeah, mental note to self: don't break into his house.
I wouldn't want to take a chance.
Nope.
All right. Shout out to Hiro Shiha Tada. Your video came in at number 2 for the month of February. Arigatou gozaimashita.
Arigatou gozaimashita.
All right. Coming in at number 1 is one of my favorites. It involves Taiko, and it is a video from the username Yume_2 Soku no Waraji. And so this came in at number 1 for the month of February. Let us have a look, good sir.
This reminds me of karate. I think it's tonfa, like the two hand. Like, I mean, you could light up somebody's rib cage like real quick.
Oh yeah, and that's one thing I love about Taiko is you actually learn the art of using 2 katanas at the same time. So
Maji,
what you're seeing,
really?
Yeah, at least that's what my sensei told me. It's like, hey, the beauty about learning Taiko, because you're using 2 bachis, 2 bachis to hit the drum, it also teaches you how to use 2 swords at the same time. So all the form and choreography, pretty much you could utilize that in battle.
Yeah, I could. Hey, that makes sense, especially like when she comes up and the one pose where she's almost standing upright. I mean, you could really put body behind that and make it hurt.
Indeed. So shout out to Yume_2 Soku no Waraji. Your video came in at number 1 for the month of February. Arigatou gozaimashita.
Arigatou gozaimashita.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for participating for the top 3 videos of the month for the Black Ronins podcast. If you would like a video to be featured, feel free to send us that video over on Instagram. We will review it and then post it on our Instagram page. If that video happens to get the most likes for the month, we'll then showcase it here on the Black Ronins podcast. So thank you everybody for participating. Arigatou gozaimashita.
Arigatou gozaimashita. Well, Samurai-san, this makes me want to ask, maybe at some point, maybe a talk or a segment about Taiko, because I'm curious now, if you'd be willing to share what you know in terms of like history, tradition, military applications. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, we can actually do a Intel stream probably once I come back from Japan, talking about Taiko and how it's actually considered part of martial arts, even though it's more of visual arts, in regards to performance and everything. But Japanese culture have utilized it to where, you learn Taiko, you can pretty much know how to do anything with a katana.
So it's kind of like capoeira, if I'm pronouncing that right. So basically, on one level, it looks like a dance, but on the other level, it's for combat.
Yeah, indeed. So
Fascinating.
That'll definitely come in handy, especially if you're ever in a bind and all you have is two katanas. Hey, learn taiko, and it'll definitely come naturally. Now I
Hey,
haven't had. Mhm.
I was gonna say if I go to the local stop and rob with two katanas on my back, I think I'll be in good shape. I don't think we want issues.
Indeed, you know it, bro. And I love taiko because as a musician, I already love music and everything. So you're learning traditional Japanese music, but at the same time, you're also learning parts of Japanese culture, and especially, like I mentioned before, Japanese martial arts. So all three of that combined into one little type of activity or exercise. And yeah, it is so much fun. I highly recommend and everybody out there, especially if you enjoy music and being a musician, you'll definitely want to learn taiko. Highly recommend.
Indeed, indeed. Now I'm curious. Hmm.
All right, Shinobi Bro. So to come back down to our previous discussion, so there was an article that came through what maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, where essentially you you got this information that came through one of the Pew Research, and they found as far as like how people are getting together, as far as social relationships and everything and whatnot. And they released some information that's pretty interesting. And for some people, they also found it somewhat, somewhat disturbing.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, there was a lot of talk about it on social media. So let's get into it because I'm sure we're gonna have a lot to say about this.
Oh, indeed, indeed. So this article was originally posted on New York Post, but we're actually using an Australia article to actually talk about this issue. But the information is still the same. So as you see from the title, it says disturbing reason why 6 in 10 young men are single. New data has revealed that 6 out of 10 young men are single, and there's a disturbing reason why. So let's check it out. It says new data has revealed that 6 out of 10 young men are single, and there's a disturbing reason why. As reported by the New York Post, the Pew Research Center data has found that nowadays 63% of men, and this is all men from all demographics, under the age of 30 are electively single, up from 51% in 2019. And experts blame erotic alone time online as a major culprit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Hmm. I think we know what they mean by erotic alone time online, what that
I'm
means.
pretty sure. Yeah,
But we don't have to mention that word here. But
that's right.
I think we're all adults here, so we know what that language entails.
Right. And plus the internet is built for, this thing that we're referring to.
Exactly.
That's what the internet's for.
Young men are watching a lot of social media. They're watching a lot of P word, and I think they're getting a lot of their needs met without having to go out. Psychologist Fred Robinowitz told The Hill. The new post COVID numbers would surely back up previous research that the pandemic has made men prefer an evening alone instead of actually meeting a partner. So here's a chart here. The blue represents men, the pink represents women. So the question was asked US adults between the ages of 18 and 29 who say they are single. 2019, women were at 32, men were at 51. In 2022, last year, men was at 63%, women only bumped 2% to 34%. Just half of single men as a whole responded that they are looking for a committed relationship and or casual dates, a decrease compared to 61% 4 years ago. But these stats tell a sadder truth about this generation of men. NYU psych professor Niobe Way told the outlet. We're in a crisis of connection, Professor Way said. Disconnection from ourselves and disconnection from each other. And it's getting worse. The
Osamu-san, if I may,
go ahead.
I'd like to point out first that this article, of course, as usual, blames the men. The men are bad, you see. It's
Yeah, it doesn't go to like, well, okay, what are the opposite people are doing?
right. I
I mean,
mean,
we see an increase, for the women from 32% to 34%. So surely they too, maybe not as drastic as men, but they too are seeing an increase of more single ladies.
I mean, here's the thing. I mean, so first of all, so shaming people for not doing what you want them to do is not an effective way to get people to do what you want them to do. I
No,
mean,
sir.
basically, I've always been a big proponent of this since the day I got online and started talking about these issues. And that is basically the free marketplace of love. A man of the proper legal age and a woman of the proper legal age that consents, no coercion, no duress, to a relationship. They can negotiate the terms of their relationship, and that's their business. That's the free marketplace of love. And so you have to ask yourself, what is so unappealing about the modern day counterpart that men are more willing to stay at home with rosy palm and the five fingers than to actually go out on a date?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I'm curious, with this stats, because the thing with this is they're looking at men from just America. I really like to know, okay, what does the stats say in regards of men, at least, in another country or a certain region of the world? That I would like to know. Because I would beg to differ, and this is just my opinion, but I would beg to differ that most likely men over in other countries and other cultures probably are not experiencing the same problems as those here in America.
I would agree with that. Now, though, remember we said earlier, I mean, we have bigger forces at work. So
Mhm.
my thought would be the men that are more willing to basically stay home, what is their social economic status? Are we talking about Brad, Chad? Are we talking about Tyrone and Leroy? I mean, who are we talking about here? Are we talking about, Giga Chad and I don't know what the equivalent would be, Psycho Tyrone, whatever. Are we talking about? Are we talking about, the elite dudes, the top 10%? Are we talking about, the best and the brightest that are getting their passports in increasing numbers and rolling out? Who exactly
Mhm.
are we talking about here? So that's kind of my first thought. And then the other thing is that I think in a lot of ways it's a vicious circle, I guess is what I want to say. That may not
Mhm.
be the proper terminology for this, but basically, like, so you have little boys and little girls. They grow up in an environment where neither one are taught how to have a proper relationship dynamic. Then you throw fuel on the fire with social media and everything else that comes with that. And now we're at the point where, well, you know, a lot of the men that are surveyed would rather stay home rather than to try to find something serious. So I think there's a lot of issues here that are subtle that have to be sussed out when it comes to stuff like this.
Hmm, indeed. Well, let's continue. It says the male numbers come sharply juxtaposed to the 34% of women under 30 who now say they're single, which has seen only a slight pandemic rise in that age group. Another factor at play might be the interest of women changing, especially as suitors of the same age are becoming apparently less desirable. Experts say women would rather go to brunch with friends than have a horrible date, LA couples and family psychologist Greg Matos said. The expectation of American men are also rising in the minds of women, according to masculinity expert and University of Akron professor Ronald Levant, who added that unfortunately, so many men don't have more to give. And so this chart shows more of US adults who say they're single. Again, men are in blue, women in pink. And really, overall, as you can see, the numbers are not that bad as far as men and women. 32% of men versus 28% of women, so only a difference of 4%. But the age does show some differences. So again, those under the age of 30, men are at 63%, women at 34%. From the ages of 34 to 49, men now drop steeply at 25%, women 17%. Ages 50 to 64, now we see a difference. Men at 28%, women at 30%. Then we come to the ripe age of 65 and above. Men 25%, women 39%. But perhaps the largest issue now with young men, one highly impacting their social abilities, is that they are, as a whole, more lonely people than women, a recent study showed. In the early 1950s, 55% of men were reported to have six or more close friends. That percentage dwindled down to 27 in 2021, according to the American Perspective Survey. As of now, 15% of men say they have no close personal friendships, data compiled by the Survey Center of American Life found. Women
What's on my
form friendships.
screen?
Go right ahead,
Oh,
Shinobi.
I apologize. So this is a real issue.
Mm-hmm.
So just from my experience, there are three places where I have the most interactions. Just speaking for myself. So it is kind of in this, Black Lonings, SYSBM type space.
Mm-hmm.
I met a lot of good guys here. Lots of good conversation, things to think about. And the other place is my dojo, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of guys there, good friends I've known for many, many years. And then the third place is my church. And the Orthodox Church tends to have a lot of men. In fact, I would probably say that we have more men than women
Mm.
that attend on a regular basis. So this is a very different phenomenon than other um, Christian churches in the U.S. So I mean, you've
Mm.
got a lot of men there, and these men, we go to the pub, we do stuff, we talk about various issues. So I mean, I say all that to say that there aren't quite the same opportunities for, men to join like clubs and groups. Like we all know growing up, right? I mean, you probably knew somebody who joined like what is it, like Kiwanis or um, you know, the Veterans Association, you know what I'm saying? Like, you
Right.
know, like there are groups that the guys would join, right? And just go hang out. There were like, as bad of a rap as these people get, I'm not a member, you know what I'm saying? But like, people would join, like lodges, right?
Mm.
Masonic lodges and stuff like that. Um, like if you remember, what was it, Flintstones? Like they had the what do they have? They had the Brontosaurus Club or whatever. Do you remember?
Right. Yeah. Something like a bowling alley and stuff.
Yeah, the Moose Lodge, So I mean,
Mm.
like you don't have those same organizations. You don't have those same
Mm.
institutions. And the truth is, a lot of American institutions and increasingly institutions around the world, institutions that were supposed to be looking out for men and kind of catering to their interests no longer do so. Like they've basically decided to shift focus and cater more towards the female side of the game. So I think this is a real issue. I think, again, interest rates, manipulation, money and credit play a huge role in this. But yeah, this is a big deal. And unfortunately, I don't really see this getting better anytime soon.
Exactly. Let me read these last two sentences because I definitely got some thoughts on this. Says women form friendships with each other that are emotionally intimate, whereas men don't, says Professor Levant. Even while not dating, women have girlfriends they spend time with and gain emotional support from. So here's my take on it. I don't really care too much about the relationship aspect far as young men and young women. To me, I personally believe, and I'm also starting to see it myself, most young men, unless you have been established in society, you really won't reach your peak until you have in your 30s and 40s and you're finally, working in society and everything, and you got something going for yourself. That's when you start to become more attractive to the ladies, the opposite sex. I mean, I've seen it with my brother. My brother didn't get married until he was in his 30s. My father probably was a little bit different. He got married in his late 20s, but nevertheless, he was already working by the time he met my mother. So it just really comes down to the fact that um, a lot of young men they're not yet there in regards of building themselves up. They work in a pretty decent job and everything, and hey, now you're you're in that stage where you can now settle down, have wife and kids, that type of things. But that really didn't catch my attention in the article. What really caught my attention is when they talked about the close personal friendship between men. That's where it kind of got my interest because technology is a double-edged sword. It is very good in regards of you can now reach people from all corners of the world. No matter where you are, you could talk to somebody on the opposite side of the Atlantic Ocean, on the opposite side of the Pacific Ocean. Heck, you could talk to somebody who is down in Antarctica, far as I know. So technology is great at that. But there's also a downside to technology. And the downside is it can also isolate you. What do I mean by that? If you try to base your life off of what other people are doing online, my personal opinion, that is a recipe for disaster. because now you're taking away from the energy that should be used for life outside of social media. And now you're putting it towards people online who they don't know you, you don't know them, but somehow they living the life that you want. They may have the job you want. They may have the type of women you're looking for. They may have the type of adventures you want. But because your circumstances is not on par with their circumstances, you can easily get caught up and feel like, man, um, I'm worthless. I don't have anything going for myself. And that's where I think I see the issue with a lot of men not having, or young men, not having a lot of close personal friendships. Like, Shinobi, bro, I will probably say out of all the people I've met online, you're probably the most closest person that I talk to on a regular basis. Hands down. Even though we yet to meet a person. I even though we yet to meet a person, but we kind of have a pretty knit, relationship where, we call each other when we can, we talk and everything and such. So we're pretty solid. But a lot of young men, unfortunately, they either don't know how to cultivate those type of relationships with other men, or they have been stunted growing up to where their social skills, unfortunately, is simply not there.
Mm.
And my thing is, if you don't know how to cultivate friendships, shout out to Aizen Sama. I got you, sir, in a bit. But if you don't know how to cultivate friendships with other men, personally, I believe trying to cultivate relationships with the opposite sex is going to be even twice as hard.
Agreed. And salute to Aizen Sama. And I got some thoughts on that on the other side.
All right, so the Dark Lord, here you go, sir.
All creatures need to obey. No one can survive without trusting someone they feel is better, more worthy than themselves. To avoid that responsibility, those who are worthy look even higher, searching for more superior beings. And those superiors do the same, looking for even stronger individuals they can believe in. That is how all kings are created. It is also how gods are born.
The Dark Lord spitting facts.
Spitting
But
facts indeed.
so I tell my son all the time, I tell him that if you want friends, you need to be a friend.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I've always stressed with him is that you're going to need allies, you're going to need connections. So, since he was, relatively small when he kind of started, elementary school, I've been asking him, and I still ask him to this day. I'm like, okay, who did you talk to? What'd you talk about? What's going on? I want an idea of kind of what's going on with him socially. He's got a couple of groups that he's got connected with through sports, through church and other places. And I'm telling him, make sure that you at least pop your head in every once in a while and talk or whatever. So, I mean, you're right in that, these soft skills are really what take you to that next level, because you can have all the technical knowledge in the world and someone might need you for that technical knowledge.
Mhm.
But if you really want to go up the ladder in society, and I always think about two things. I had someone at my employer tell me a long time ago that the nicer you are, the higher rank you are.
Mhm.
And I think that's more or less true. Because when you start dealing with people in the C-suites, more or less, these people are personable. They know how to communicate with you, all these type of things. The other thing was, to the departed Kevin Samuels, when his definition of what is a high value man, one of the things that I think that really didn't get a lot of attention, but should have gotten more attention, was his idea that basically you need to be a mover and shaker. You need to have people that you can reach out to and network with. That is one of the definitions of a high value man. And I agree with that 100%. So I think you're definitely onto something there, Osama-san.
Yeah, it's just something like you said. You talk to your son about, hey, if you want friends, you got to be friends. You got to be a friend. That was the same kind of talk that my dad instilled in me when I was just a toddler. Like, hey, if you want friends, you got to be able to be friendly. You got to, find friends that have the same interests as you and cultivate it. Even now, in the office, when I go to work, I don't go into the office that much because, I work remotely throughout most of the months and years. But when I do go in the office, I already have a list of men that I could just go see them in person or send them an instant message on the work social media platform, and we just hit it up no problem. And we could just talk about any and everything. How their day's doing, how my day's doing, what you got going on for this weekend. Oh, what trip you're going to, what restaurant you're going to eat at. These are skill sets that were taught to me from a very young age. And to me, that was the essence of knowing how well you can move in other cultures. If you're not able to socialize with the men of these cultures, then you can forget about, finding a quality Stargate and trying to, have a family and cultivate and everything, because you just don't have that communication. And speaking of Kevin Samuels, I will never forget, he made this statement that after doing some research, it is absolutely true. I hear dudes talk about, hey, you can go and get a six-figure job and everything, and make some decent money and whatnot, and you'll be solid. Yeah, that's true. But also know this: only about 10% of those six-figure jobs are positions where you don't interact with people at all, or you don't see people at all. The other 90% of those six-figure jobs and above, you're going to have to interact with people.
Yeah.
And like Shinobi Bro says, and I've been told this too, the nicer you are, the higher up you move up in the
Yep.
corporate world.
Exactly. And and we've made it no secret. Like I am definitely opposed to the woke agenda for a variety of reasons. But
Hmm.
one of the main reasons is that it makes it impossible to get along with people who may not necessarily, share your particular characteristics. And that is absolutely fatal.
Hmm.
That is absolutely destructive because, throughout my professional career and all other types of endeavors, I've been constantly working with men or training with men or, you know, worshiping with other men who don't look like me, who don't, they don't share my particular, ethnicity. They didn't grow up in the same circumstances that I did. And, if I really bought into all of this, kind of woke religion identity stuff, then I would be crippled. I would not be able to communicate with people, and especially with men from different environments. It would kill any possibility that I would have of success. And that's one of the reasons why I reject it so vehemently, because throughout my life, And I grew up in a time where, people insulted each other on a regular basis.
Right.
I grew up in a neighborhood where everybody was a ninja. So, you know, like, I mean, people would say, like, like, for example, I grew up in a neighborhood where there were some pretty, hardcore white dudes. Like, these guys were living that street life. And what they, what kind of the preppy people would refer to them as the winjas, you know what I'm saying?
Wait,
And
Shinobi Bro. So you saying these type of guys, the white guys, they just walk into any event and they just strut their stuff like this?
Oh shit.
yeah, yeah, that's pretty much how it went down. And I mean, these guys, like, and like we were referred to them as ninjas. They were referred to us as ninjas. I mean, that's just how it was. Like, no one was tripping off of stuff like that. And that's just how we grew up. We gave as good as we got. We talked a lot of crap to each other, but at the end of the day, we respected each other because we might have gotten into some fisticuffs or whatever, but that's just how it was. And we put differences aside and we got the job done, whatever that happened to be. And I feel like that in 2023, that is a skill that is being deliberately crippled. They're trying to cripple people's minds to where that type of communication ability is impossible. That's just my personal opinion, though.
No, I agree. I definitely agree, and that's where as samurais in training and shinobis in training, you gotta be able to know how to navigate environments. One thing that we preach here on the podcast is adaptability. And Shinobi Bro, you could probably attest to this, the essence and importance of being adaptable, being able to know what environment you're in and being able to blend in order to get the job done. I think those type of essence are missing from a lot of these young men that don't know how to navigate through these interesting times because they're trying to downgrade their male essence while the female essence is always being uplifted, with a forklift,
Forklifted.
right? And all. And so, in my personal opinion, it's leaving a lot of young men confused, not knowing what to do and how to navigate. So that kind of brings up this next interesting thing. So I never forget last week, I was just thumbing through Instagram, trying to get some ideas for the podcast and all. And lo and behold, I come to this post that talks about how to utilize Japanese concepts in your everyday life. And, that sparked my interest. Oh, Japanese concepts. And the very first concept that we're going to talk about tonight is the concept of ikigai. So I was reading this post talking about what is ikigai. Ikigai in Japanese means purpose. And actually, it's broken down to several things. Iki means life, and gai means worth or something of value. So when you put those together, it really just means what is value of life. In other words, what is the purpose of life? And it really got me thinking and really got me researching. It was like, wow, ikigai is actually probably one of the main essence we talk about here on the podcast. For a lot of men out there that don't know what they're looking for or what they're trying to do, I would challenge them today. If you're listening in on this podcast, whether on YouTube or on the platforms like Spotify and all, I challenge you to find your ikigai. And I got a short YouTube video that we're going to be talking about, Shinobi Bro, about ikigai. And I think it'll help set the tone of why we are having this type of discussion tonight. So let me get the fair use button going.
Fair use.
This is somebody else's content, but it's pretty short, so it shouldn't be a problem. But let's get right into it.
The Japanese philosophy of ikigai has gained popularity in recent years and has become a symbol of the Japanese way of life. In this video, let's understand what ikigai is and how it can help you live a more fulfilling life. Ikigai is a Japanese word that means a reason for being. It is a concept that combines four elements: what you love, what you are good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. According to this philosophy, when these four elements intersect, it creates a sense of purpose, satisfaction, and meaning in life. In many aspects, the sense of purpose may vary based on the individual, but we all need a purpose, a meaning, and satisfaction of doing something worthwhile. So, first we need to find our ikigai. Finding your ikigai requires self-reflection, introspection, and exploration. It involves asking yourself questions like, what do I enjoy doing? What am I good at? What do I value? What do I want to contribute to the world? By reflecting on these questions, you can start to uncover your ikigai and begin your journey towards fulfillment. By asking these questions to yourself, you will also gain clarity about yourself and what really matters to you. This is one of the biggest reasons how happy and successful people really focus on understanding themselves by all means and gain clarity towards what they really want in their lives. Clarity makes things simple and clear, so the progress is going to be quick and your decisions will be just the way you want it to be. There are four elements of ikigai. The first element of ikigai is what you love. This refers to your passions, hobbies, and interests. It is what you enjoy doing and what brings you joy. The second element.
Okay, so let's start with that first one. What do you love? I think Shinobi Bro, this is definitely something where a lot of men need to ask themselves, what do you love to do outside of social media? Do not try to use social media as a hobby. Get that out of your repertoire. You don't need social media as your hobby. You need to be serious with yourself and ask yourself, what do I like to do for fun? What do I enjoy doing outside of my house, my apartment, or wherever you live? I'll use myself as an example. I am a bass guitarist, thanks in part to my dad, and also thanks in part to some of my male relatives. So if I don't feel like going outside, I'll probably just take out either my 4-string or 5-string bass and I just do practice runs. I'll even go searching for music online and see if I can replicate the bass line. Outside of that, I also like to go hiking, go out in nature. In, in fact, here in Phoenix, we also have horseback riding. So going on horses and, treading through the desert and everything. These are hobbies. Even if you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50s and you don't have a hobby yet, it's never too late. Never too late to find out what your passion is. What you got, Shinobi Bro?
Yeah, I have to agree with Azur. This is pretty dope, actually. And I like the idea of kind of going through these concepts because, when I was in my early 20s, I read a book called Living the 80-20 Way. And it was written by Richard Cox. Again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, I guess he's from South Africa. So if I was the type of person that was closed-minded and say, I don't need to listen to anybody outside of my particular group, I would have never read this book and my life wouldn't be what it is today. But in any event, the whole idea was to basically, focus on your strengths and, pare back your weaknesses and focus on that most profitable, 20%, the 20% of your activities that lead to 80% of your results. And I find that this is very similar. And I like what you're doing here with the practical examples. All that is to say that I wish I would have heard about this sooner, because I think a lot of us here on this channel, the gentlemen that frequent this particular platform, are doing it already, but there hasn't been such a concise categorization of what we've been doing, if that makes sense.
Right, exactly.
But please go on.
Is what you are good at. This refers to your skills, talents, and strengths. It is what you excel at and what you can do well. The third element.
So, second concept of ikigai. What are you good at? Do you have a talent, or have you cultivated a talent that you enjoy doing? Now, let me share an example for myself. As a kid, I was not good at mathematics. I was just not. I just did not understand what was the essence and importance of knowing how to do math. But my father, who is an engineer, graduated, got a college degree in engineering, he helped to cultivate my interest in math. So much so that I decided one day as a kid in elementary school, like, you know what? If I'm going to have to deal with math, I might as well get good at it. So that's what I did. I would take the math homework and find some extra problems that I could utilize and try to get good at that. Uh, Lee Sung Soon TV, good to see you, sir. Nice to meet you, and welcome to the Black Ronins podcast.
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
but yeah. So now, if you was to tell me that I got my degree now in mathematics and I'm working in the IT field doing artificial intelligence and seeing where IT can go with artificial intelligence, I would have laughed you off. But that was a talent that I took and I cultivated. And my personal belief, if I can learn it, anybody else can learn it if you put your mind to it.
Yeah, and just to chime in, I guess in my case, I was always very interested in money and history. So I was spending a lot of time just reading books about, financial history, economic history. I've always had a thing for, economics, because economics to me is the study of how people organize themselves and organize resources. So I basically took that interest and I went to school for it. And I think most people know my situation, got into the business and started to get licenses and things like that. So, I think this is a very important point, and I'm going to hold off until the end. But it seems to me that if you can end up in a sweet spot where you're doing something that you really love doing, you're really good at it, then you shouldn't have to work really hard at it.
Mhm.
But I'll reserve judgment until we get to the end.
Is what the world needs. This refers to the needs and problems of society. It is what you can contribute to the world to make it a better place. The fourth element.
So, number three, what the world needs. And I think this one is probably the most scariest part of ikigai for a lot of young men, is figuring out what is it that I can contribute to the world. And I'm here to tell anybody who's willing to listen. You have so much to contribute to the world. You as a young man or even an older man, whatever that purpose is, once you find it, I think you'll realize that, hey, this is something where I was just bound to do. Now I'll be like Shinobi Bro and wait till the end to kind of give my perspective of that section. But I really want the audience to really think of themselves. What does the world needs that I can use my passion or use my talent to help contribute? Any case,
Is what you can be paid for. This refers to the value you can provide to others. It is what you can offer to others that they are willing to pay for. Ikigai can help you live a more fulfilling life. By finding your ikigai, you can create a sense of purpose and meaning in your life. Remember, your ikigai is not a destination, but rather a journey that requires constant reflection, exploration, and growth. Thank you for watching this video.
so there you have it. And I like that last part where the author says Ikigai is not about the goals, it's the destination. And in fact, I heard a Japanese sensei say, think of Ikigai as a hero's journey.
Ooh.
You are the protagonist, you're the main character. And what you do in that story is how you cultivate your Ikigai.
Mm. You know, shout out to the late great David Carroll.
Mm.
So on my soundtrack list, my playlist, I have a few different songs, and I have a different song for each member of our family, and it's kind of like our theme song. So I have a Street Fighter track for my son. I have a anime opening track for my daughter, and young Hinata, of course, I have another anime soundtrack for her.
Ooh.
But for me, my soundtrack is a theme called Image of Hero, because
Mm.
I've always thought of myself as being the hero of my dreams. And this is from a young age. And I think that my Nimbo training had a lot to do with that. We talked about it before, Sensei Takai, and other opportunities to talk about it. But, I've always said, and I find it ironic that people will use the word ninja to refer to brothers in most cases, because I've always said that the Ebony Man is Shinobi.
Yep.
He has to find a way out of no way. And I think that this concept that you shared is really valuable. What I would also mention is this. For some people, I think a lot of people think that they have to do this pondering entirely in their head. But what I would say is, I think that you're going to get a lot better results if you write stuff down. So you can
Exactly.
write out these questions and then just take an old school pencil and an old school legal notepad and just write. I think you'll get better results that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and again, it's not something that you have to do in one day. Let me make sure and let that know. Like, this is not something you have to figure out in one day. Take your time. Really, really, search the globe in regards of what is your purpose. And to me, I'm just speaking for Shinobi Bro here, but I think, or excuse me, I'm speaking for Samurai San, but Shinobi Bro could probably, think the same way. But I I recently realized what type of purpose I found in my life. And that is becoming a modern samurai, just like Sensei Takai. And I even sent him a message one time thanking him for his ways of teaching, and I'm hoping pretty soon to start following in his ways of thinking and become a modern
Mm.
samurai. And the reason why I feel like that is my purpose is I think in a lot of ways, just like the articles we just read tonight, Shinobi Bro, there's a lot of people who really don't have an idea of what they want to do or become in life. And I'm kind of one, I don't believe in preaching. I don't believe in, so to speak, trying to go out there in the world and try to spread the word, spread the gospel, whatnot. Personally, that's just me. Even though I believe in God and I believe um in a higher being and all, but that's just not me. What I do believe, and this is just me, I do believe in being a living example. What do I mean by that?
Facts.
Letting my lifestyle be a testament in and of itself. So when somebody comes up to Osamura-san, it's like, hey man, what do you do for yourself? What do you got going for yourself and everything? Then it'd be easier for me, like, hey, I'm a modern samurai. And I am taking the teachings of the way of a samurai and transferring it to these modern times. And if a person wants to know more about that, hey, I'll be able to tell you all about it and share it with you. But if not, hey, that's cool. At least, you know, somebody has given you that idea. And to me, that's where I feel like my purpose is like moving up in society, moving up in the corporate world, helping building out this podcast and business with Shinobi Bro. So that way people see like, you know what, these two guys, Osamu San and Shinobi Bro, these type of guys got something about them that I want, something about them that I want to be a part of. To me, that's my whole purpose. And I am content to live out the rest of my living days feeding into that purpose.
Wow. Also, Alvarez-san, I hate to say this, but you preaching.
Wait, the Birdman.
Preach, brother. No, actually, no, I'm with you on that. I'm gonna hold my peace though until we get to final thoughts, because yeah, I want to expound on that, at the proper time.
Right. And the reason I say that, Shinobi Bro, because you know, I was hearing some stuff, about some people they want to travel to Japan and they want to be able to experience the cultures and whatnot, but they need help, which is fine, but they're asking help in the wrong way. Like for example, I saw some individual who wants people to donate almost 5 grand to sponsor their trip to Japan. And to me, I'm just like, I don't know if that's a proper way to really go about your purpose in life. Rather
Yeah, I
than,
saw that too. I was, yeah.
yeah, rather than just asking people to, sponsor you and everything, again, figure out your ikigai. If you figure out your ikigai, then you know that, hey, I got some talent that can help me get paid for it. And I can get my own money, and then I'll be able to sponsor my own trip to Japan. To me, that's how I would go about it. That's why I'm looking forward to later on this summer when finally I get to go to Japan this summer and hopefully in May. And I'll be able to show you guys some of the beauties and wonders of Japan. Some of the things that they don't show to like tourists and everything and whatnot. Some of the cool places to go, cool people to meet and whatnot. But that's something that I'm doing for myself, not trying to have people like, hey, could you give me $7,000 so I can do such and such or go to such and such. I mean, if people, this is one of the reasons why, and Shinobi brought out, you agree with this as well. This is one of the reasons why we don't really push for donations on this platform. We appreciate every donation, but again, we want you guys to donate because you enjoy the content. You don't have to worry about us begging you to donate. You don't have to worry about us being like, "Hey, I'm going to stop this stream until you guys donate and everything." No, no,
Right.
no. That's not us.
No.
Because you know what? We have better means of making a living. But we just like, hey, if you enjoy the content, if you like to help contribute to the Black Ronin podcast, feel free to donate. If not, we still enjoy your company. And we're still going to show you guys the true essence of Japanese culture and the ways of the samurai and the ways of the shinobi. Because
Preach.
that is what we are all about.
Exactly. And I can assure you, you know, those donations, they go to the platform.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. Because it's one of those things that not here to brag or anything, but you know what I'm saying? Money's not really something that I'm looking for, quite honestly.
Right. It is never, when we started this podcast, and Shinobi Bro can tell you from the jump, this podcast was never about money. It was always about sharing Japanese culture, specifically to the Western world, but to anybody that's interested. And so for us, this is pretty much a hobby. It's not our main source of income, but again, we enjoy the donations that comes through, but that's never been our focus. Our focus has always been and will continue to be giving you, ladies and gentlemen, the essence of Japanese culture. That is our ikigai for this platform.
Absolutely. Man, also, I want to say you are on fire. Did you like train in the mountains or something?
You know what? Last month, this is one reason why, we've been busy with we haven't did the podcast till late this month and everything. Last month, I've been busy just meeting more people, socialize with more people. If you guys have been watching the shorts on this channel, I've been to some Japanese concerts. I've been to some festivals and all. And I'm doing this because I want you guys to see this for yourself. See what I'm experiencing. And it also gives you a preview in regards of what's to come down the line when me and Shinobi Bro make plenty of trips to the land of the rising sun. So that gives you an idea of what's coming down the pipe and what's to see. In essence, shout out to David Curl. My attitude has been, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to all these places one more again, but this time I want y'all to come with me.
Oh yeah, the wisdom of those who are no longer with us. But I mean, yeah, I think this is phenomenal stuff. I'm just gonna hold my peace for right now.
Man. But before we continue, gotta give a great shout out to the Azure. He sent in a cash app of $55. Man, that is just
Thank you,
awesome.
sir.
So, arigatou gozaimasu. Arigatou gozaimasu. So, let me give Mr. Aku.
Samurai, why won't you die?
So this is Aku. And you know what? Because we feeling a great mood right now. Mr. Azure, here's some Kambuki for you. I can't wait
That's
to go
hype.
to. I can't wait to go to a kabukiza in Japan. Like,
Just
so
wild out, like they start to play, then they drop that trap beat.
man, all they gotta do is just give me that long wig, either red or white, and man, I'll be a headbanger, no problem.
That's right, wild out.
And guess what? Don't have to worry about somebody's weave falling out.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, but man, shout out to you, Diazor. Arigatou gozaimashita.
Arigatou gozaimashita.
Man.
Oh, shoot.
So, Shinobi Bro, we have come to pretty much the final segment of this very powerful stream. Shinobi Bro, you've always been one of my inspirations and whatnot for these streams and everything. But good sir, what are your final thoughts for tonight?
Whew. It's a lot of thoughts. I tend to focus on what I think are long-term trends, and I want to try to identify those as early as possible. So basically, we can strategize and say, okay, this is the trend. How do we deal with it? How do we manage the risk? How do we avoid it? How do we use it to our advantage? And, I do that because, I think that my thought process is the fruit of many years of training, meditation, prayer, conversation, discussion, debate. So sometimes I feel like that sometimes it's good to go back to the basics. And I'm very thrilled, actually, that you've mentioned this new concept, not new to Japanese culture, but, I have to admit, I have not heard of this before today. And I'm glad that we are able to say, okay, here's what's happening out here. And then we're able to present a solution, a tangible, actionable solution. Sometimes because, I have this process where, sometimes I get inspiration like in the middle of the night. So what I've been doing is I have my my iPad next to my bed. And if I feel like that, I need to jot down some notes or something, I will crack open my iPad and I will make a note in the middle of the night. Or if I'm, in the office or something or out and about, I feel like I need to take some important notes. I'll, break out my iPhone and I'll make the appropriate notes. So it's helpful and important to jot down those ideas. Don't try to do it in your head because you can easily get sidetracked. Some people can do that, but I'm not that smart. So we see these long-term trends, and unfortunately, there are going to be individuals that are not going to come out of this unscathed. We've got robotics, we've got AI, we've got all kinds of things that are basically going to chew up and spit out those who are not creative, who haven't figured out their ikigai, who don't have the soft skills, that unfortunately have been weighed down by ideologies that prevent them from reaching out to other groups of people that may have solutions that maybe they could use. What we're talking about is not optional. What we discuss in this channel is not something that's nice to do or something that you should do. I believe this is mandatory for your survival. If you want to survive and thrive, you're going to have to put the advice of individuals like Sensei Takai, the things that we talk about, the things that our guests have talked about over the years, you're going to have to take this information and you're going to have to make it work, because the future belongs to those who can have emotional intelligence. The future belongs to those who have their ikigai. The future belongs to those who can focus on the 20% of their activities that lead to 80% of their results. If you can't do that, you're probably going to end up being replaced. So I like the conversation. I want to see this conversation continue, because I really think that these are the important things. If you want to pass down your legacy, be it on a spiritual level, maybe to a disciple, or on a biological level, if you want to have that nice life, if you want to travel and immerse yourself in different cultures and be able to navigate and things like that, you're going to have to take this stuff serious, because consequences of inaction are getting ready to fall upon people like a ton of bricks. And that's what I'm talking about.
Indeed, Shinobi bro, and you just hit it out the ballpark as usual. But SKC, he was just saying the same thing you were saying, how he do the same thing but with a scratch pad, something about paper and a pen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I, I'll tell anybody, another hobby of mine that I enjoy is poetry. And something that I'm starting to get into is haiku poems. And it's just something, especially when you go out in nature, how you can find so much inspiration that will help you to put it down on pen and paper. SKC just said he started a calligraphy class with his family. More relaxing, not provoking than initially imagined. SKC, funny how like minds think alike. I was at a festival, a Japanese festival, and I had a random Japanese lady. I was at this art exhibit where they had like calligraphy writings on a wall, and it's hundreds of students who did their own calligraphy that they had it plastered on a wall. And this older Japanese lady is like, "Hey, we're looking for more members, so I think you'll do good in calligraphy." And again, that's just being social. That's, having that energy of a person can look at you and say, this person seems approachable, seems friendly. And you know what? I told the lady, if you have a business card, I will definitely keep that in mind, because I'm always looking to try some new Japanese activities and all. But again, it's having your ikigai. And once you have your ikigai, you'll be amazed at just how easy it is to adapt in this world. Now, I won't say it will always be easy, because believe me, we have our downtimes as well. That happens. But the difference between a person who's successful and a person who's not is mindset. You literally have to have that mindset of, hey, there's going to be some bad days, but you know what? Better days are always ahead. And I want to leave that with any newcomer tonight in regards of your ikigai. Just always remember, better days are always ahead. So, with that said, just want to thank everybody for listening in on tonight. You have all been very gracious to us. We always appreciate it. For those who are going to be listening in on Spotify and Anchor, you will find the podcast being updated sometime around tomorrow with tonight's broadcast. So you'll be able to listen in if you're on the road and you don't want to be distracted, but you definitely want to listen in while you drive. Highly recommend you subscribe to our Spotify channel. The link is posted in the chat by our gracious Battissimo. So you definitely can find us on all these other social media platforms like Rumble, Spotify, Instagram, and the like. And so be sure to tune in later on this month, because we will have another Black Ronins podcast. And also, we're in the works of getting some more interviews lined up. So you guys will definitely be able to have some more people come listening in on the podcast while we interview people either living in Japan or have been to Japan and or they do martial arts. So yeah, you're definitely want to tune in. So that's coming up later on this month. But with that said, I am your host, Osamurai-san, and the Shinobi Bro himself, the Ways of the Ninja, is here as well. Until next time, this is the way.
This is the way.